We quit Airbnb.
We've been traveling abroad for almost 2 years now, moving from city to city each week. In fact, the first year of travel, we stayed in 41 different Airbnb units.
And today we're going to tell you about some of our experiences in hopes that you won't make the same mistakes we made, and also tell you about a few policies that we don't think are very customer friendly.
And we're going to tell you about some of the Airbnbs we had to walk away from and how we resolved the issues.
We're John and Bev, and we are the Retirement Travelers.
If you've been following along with us, you know that we're traveling through Southeast Asia, blogging for our website, retirementtravelers.com. So be sure to go there and sign up for our newsletter. You can also, subscribe to our YouTube channel below.
One more thing, some of our favorite stays have been Airbnb. We have seen and met some of the most superior hosts out there. They are an integral part of our memories from those cities.
There's nothing better than a kind and thoughtful host, and we've had a lot of them around the world. I mean, we've had some, leave us bottles of wine. We even had one bake us a cake, so they are out there creating memories and making remarkable experiences for their guests.
Right. And one more thing is that, some of our experiences could have been avoided if we had read the reviews better or had examined the photos in detail.
So let's talk about some of the problems we've encountered.
During our first year of travel, we were very excited about the prospect of staying in local residential accommodations. We had assumed before we started travel that it was the best bargain for us, but we soon realized that, as time went by, it probably wasn't that same bargain that we had assumed.
That's right. Now, if you're staying for a month or more, you can usually find some pretty good deals with Airbnb. But for shorter term stays of a week or less, like what we're doing, we had a hard time finding bargains. Now, there are two fees you need to pay with Airbnb, the service charge and a cleaning fee. The service charge runs 14% of your total bill.
Now, this is a service charge charged by the company. The host also pays a commission on the booking, so they are getting paid by the host and by the customer.
You also have to pay a cleaning fee. Now, this is set by the host and it can be very high. Now, in some cases, we wanted to check the box live in filth because we'd rather live dirty than pay some of these exorbitant cleaning fees. But at least with the cleaning fee and the service charge, you know how much you're going to have to pay. And, before you hit confirm, you know how much you're going to pay.
Yeah, when we started comparing these costs and comparing them to hotels, especially ones that serve breakfast, we started to realize that maybe Airbnb wasn't our best option, especially for shorter stays. The second reason we shifted to hotels is that Airbnb doesn't provide a loyalty program. Now, other providers offer this and we get benefit from it. So we really think that this is one area that Airbnb could improve.
Now, along the same lines, we've become aware of several policies that have really kind of turned us off on Airbnb.
The first is the fine print that says if you cancel more than 3 times in a 12-month period, Airbnb will start keeping your service fees for future stays that you need to cancel. This even includes those that are 100% cancelable. There's that word again.
Yeah. For example, we book each week on Airbnb, and let's just say our plans change even 6 months out and we want to cancel a group of bookings. Well, all of those count toward our 3, and Airbnb starts keeping our service charge. Even on ones that, we book that we can cancel. This just doesn't seem fair to us.
Now, we're not talking about last minute cancellations. In that case, we kind of agree with them. We're talking about bookings that are in advance. They end up treating us like we're kind of like the customer that books 4 times a year and cancels 3 of them.
Yeah, we kind of feel like the unappreciated loyal customer. We think there should be an exception. If you book far in advance or you're booking all the time like we do, and we think there should be some exceptions, maybe some type of a sliding scale for those situations.
Yeah, everyone who travels realizes, especially if you're traveling full-time for business or anything, you realize you're going to have adjustments in your schedule that you have to make from time to time.
Another policy that bothers us is when the host cancels on us. Now, this happened a number of times last year where the host would cancel, sometimes at the last minute, for reasons that we didn't think were very good.
Now, if the host cancels, they're charged $100 by Airbnb, and Airbnb doesn't share that charge with us. We're the ones inconvenienced, and we're the ones left to scramble to find another place. But, we just don't think that's fair.
Yeah, now Airbnb says they will help you find a new place, but it's kind of the principle of it. We have spent a lot of time finding the best place near public transportation, where we needed to go, and when the host cancels at the last minute, it gets tough to find another place in that same area, that's the same category of what we had.
Another problem is that when the host cancels, they insist that you're the one that pressed the button. They don't want to get charged that $100. And, it's a problem. If you are, a frequent customer, it counts as your 3 in a 12-month period. So it can come back to haunt you.
Yeah, every time a host was trying to cancel on us and trying to get us to do it, we had to contact customer service. And, customer service handled it with Airbnb, but it's kind of a hassle to have to call them and get that worked out every time a host cancels.
I know, it feels like we're having to fight for ourselves every single time. I mean, every time we've had to fight over that. And, we just finally gave up and said, you know what, not even going to argue with them. We're just going to call customer service. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the convenience of staying at an Airbnb. For the most part, it's pretty convenient, especially if you have a lockbox where you can pick up the key. But some hosts insist on meeting you and handing over the keys, and this can create a problem.
Yeah, we found that our schedule is not always set. I mean, buses, trains, planes, they're late sometimes, and when we get to a new country, sometimes we've had communication issues, either with the cell phone or whatever, and it's hard to make contact with the host, and that can cause a problem.
Yeah, it can cause a lot of stress. And another stressor is when we're left on the side of the road waiting on an Airbnb host to get there. If they're going to make an appointment with us to be there at a certain time, they really need to show up. But we've been left on the side of the road sometimes up to an hour.
Sometimes we've communicated with the owner, but it's actually a remote owner or out of the country owner, and a local person shows up, which sometimes complicates the communication process.
Yeah, they don't know who said what, and we don't know who we were talking to in the first place. Wires get crossed, and it can be complicated.
Another thing we don't like are long encounters with the host, that want to explain every single rule in their rule book. After meeting with host after host after host after host, it gets a little competitive. We get it, but it can kind of be a hassle. It feels like some of these encounters have been up to an hour.
Yeah, and when you contrast that to a hotel where you could just walk in and with no appointment, no long orientation, hotels become a little more appealing.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of the problems we've encountered. The first is mapping issues.
Now, when you book on Airbnb, you're given a map and it shows the location of the Airbnb within a half-mile radius. Now, this is a big range for us, and I guess it's for security.
Yeah, I think so. But a half mile is a pretty big range, especially when you're carrying a backpack around the city, or even if you're got a roller suitcase on cobblestone streets. It's a big area. We want to be close to public transportation, and we like to know exactly where the place is, like you could do with a hotel. So it kind of bothers us.
So one of our biggest complaints, and probably, the most obvious, is that the pictures don't tell the whole story.
Isn't that the truth?
It is the truth. Now, when you book, in Europe especially, we found that we were really on the top floor of every single building, sometimes on the 6th floor. You've got to remember, in Europe, when you book, their first floor is actually our second. So when you're booking on the 3rd floor and you think, I can get up to the 3rd floor, you're really going to the 4th. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, another thing to remember in these older buildings in Europe is if there's an elevator, which is not always the case, it's usually a scary one.
A very scary one.
We got into a couple that were so tiny that Bev and I could barely get in, and
I didn't want to ride one alone.
I know it was too scary. We decided to just walk rather than get in the elevator.
So let's talk about just general problems.
Now, we've had a number of general problems. We probably could have eliminated some of these if we would have read all the reviews and looked at the pictures closer.
Kitchens. Kitchens are just inadequate a lot of times. We have been at some that have no silverware or have no pans or basic condiments like salt and pepper. I mean, these are things that Airbnbs should have in their kitchen.
We've had some that had completely inadequate Wi-Fi. Now, we think Airbnb should require hosts to post what their Wi-Fi speed is. You know, if you're going to say you have Wi-Fi, you shouldn't have a problem with posting what the speed is. We remember one lady in Turin, Italy, and she was very proud of her Wi-Fi speed, even posted it, and it was great. And when we left a review, we said not only was it a beautiful place, but it also had extremely fast Wi-Fi.
We've also had some that were as slow as 1989 speeds.
That's true.
If you're traveling in the summer, you need to be very careful about your air conditioning. If you're booking a place that says they have air conditioning, you need to examine the pictures very carefully or send a message to the host. Because what we found is that a lot of units will say they have air conditioning, but they have a small unit in the living room. And when you're on the upper floor and it's 100 degrees outside, there's zero chance your bedroom is going to be cool. I mean, we have slept on sleeper sofas in the living room. We have drug on 2 occasions the mattress from the bedroom into the living room so that we could get cool at night.
Yeah.
And we're not even wimpy.
That's right. And we remember one case where there was a note that said you can't use any of the appliances in the condo if you had the air conditioning on because they were limited on electricity.
No coffee pot, no anything.
Yeah.
Like you had to turn it off every single time or we would flip the breaker.
We've had some places where bugs were an issue. Now, if you don't mind sleeping with bugs, then just ignore this part. But I mean, we've had ant infestations, we've had cockroaches, we've had all kinds of bug issues. You know, I remember one place in Costa Rica where these little bugs would cover our sheets every night. I mean, it was just a daily ritual where
Through the mosquito net.
mosquito net, and we would wake up and we'd shake all the black bugs off of us and do it again the next day. But
Oh, so disgusting.
it was disgusting.
We've had some hosts that leave the laundry from the last guest in the washing machine, and we have to hang it so that we can use the unit. We've also walked into units where there are drying racks of linens that were from the previous guest, and we have to deal with that or walk around.
Yeah. We had one that advertised that they had a washer and dryer, but what they really meant was there was a laundromat down the street that you could take your clothes to and pay. We complained to them and told them this was false advertisement, and they did claim that they were going to take it off their listing, but it just didn't seem right. We didn't get what we were paying for.
We had some with no hot water for showers, and in the hot summer that's okay, but for the most part we just don't like cold water. I mean, sometimes you have to turn the hot water heater on before you take a shower and heat it up, and we kind of get that. But we went into one unit that had this glorious bathtub, and but it had no hot water, and so we had to heat it up on the stove if we wanted warm water. I mean, we're just not into ice baths.
Let's talk coffee. Coffee's very important. We went through one stretch where it seemed like every place had a different coffee pod, and sometimes I had a hard time finding those pods in local stores. So finally I just got a filter. I use ground coffee, I pour in hot water, and that kind of solved the coffee problem.
Yeah, we ditched those pods.
We ditched the pods.
So we've walked away from a couple of units, and as you can tell, there are several that we should have walked away from. The first was a unit that when we arrived, we were taken to a unit we didn't actually book.
Yeah, the issue was it was under construction, okay? They had a major renovation project going on where we actually had to walk through the construction zone, concrete, chunks on the floor.
Tools.
We had tools just to get to our condo.
Yeah, and all day, every day, it was jackhammers going.
I mean, yeah, if you like jackhammer music, you should stay there. But
This was a constant hum and pounding. But
Yeah,
we finally gave up and asked to be, released from our contract.
the second place that we walked away from was, we'd call it a desperate dump, for lack of better words. It was dark, disgusting and depressing, and we said, not staying here.
Yeah, and the host in both of these cases let us out of our agreement. I think that they would rather that you walk away and they release you than you leave a bad review, which is kind of leverage that you could use. And we didn't have to say that, but it's a good reason. If you go back and you read the reviews, there were a lot of bad ones, and we should have paid attention.
Yeah, so I mean, overall, we probably had almost half of our Airbnb stays we had some kind of issue, with. And we struggled through most of the time, but finally we just got tired of dealing with the issues.
Once we switched to hotels and we realized that we really weren't paying more for them, we started to enjoy the journey more. We also realized that in some cases we were getting better amenities. I mean, sometimes we were getting a pool, or maybe we were getting a gym, and we're certainly getting better Wi-Fi. In a lot of cases, we were getting breakfast.
Yeah, it was really nice just to walk into a hotel, easy check-in process, and actually have a human being to talk to right there, and just go up to your room. We realize that in some cases we may be paying a little bit more for hotels, but the extra value that we get is worth it.
So last year when we stayed at many of the Airbnbs, we were required to do a lot of tasks. We were required to carry out and sort all of the garbage from the recyclables. We had to pull the sheets off the bed, put them in the washing machine. We had to wash all of the dishes or load the dishwasher and get it started. We had to do all of these tasks, and there were just a lot.
Yeah, and Airbnb was getting so many complaints about this. They actually now changed the rules, and they're forbidding the hosts from making unreasonable cleaning requests to the guests. And we think this was a good change, and glad they made this one.
Another change that they've made is that on their search page, they now have a switch that you can toggle on to get the total price of a booking before you go through the booking process. Before, it was kind of on the back end and you couldn't know what the fees were when you were looking for a unit. Now it's on the front page. You still have to do a little math to figure out what your charge is by day, but we think it's an improvement.
Yeah, and there's probably other overdue changes that we've missed. So if you've got a suggestion, please leave it in the comments below. Who knows, maybe Airbnb will read our comments and take action.
Yeah, we can only hope.
Yeah.
But we get a lot of people that have asked us, do you use Airbnb or do you use hotel? We wanted to share with you our experience of why we switched, and also kind of give you a heads up so that you'll be a better customer going forward.
And we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Be sure to hit subscribe and follow along on our retirement journey around the world.